palace court, her eyes widening in astonishment as she saw the familiar faces of the people in the court. The hunter, who was the prince, that of her family members, and more shocking was that of her murderers, Ifeoma and her stepmother. Confusion clouded her mind.
Please like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel because it helps us grow. Welcome to Osato Folklore Haven.
Once upon a time, in a small African village, there lived two sisters named Adesua and Ifeoma. Adesua was a gentle, kind-hearted soul, loved by all who knew her. She was beautiful. Her beauty was like the rising sun, radiant and captivating. Ifeoma, on the other hand, was beautiful, but her heart was tainted with such bitterness and envy. This tainted her every action. Adesua and Ifeoma's mother passed away at a very young age, leaving them both motherless. Although Ifeoma was also beautiful, Adesua inherited her mother's looks, which made her father fond of her as she reminded him of his departed wife. This only made Ifeoma's jealousy and bitterness worse. From a young age, Ifeoma resented her sister's beauty and the attention it got her. Despite their father's best efforts to treat them both equally, their father began to struggle with raising them alone, as it seemed that Ifeoma was always out and against her sister Adesua. Ifeoma was always trying to pick a fight with Adesua, and Adesua, being a peaceful person, always avoided her confrontations. This frustration led their father to look for another wife, with hopes that the presence of a loving mother will have a positive impact on his daughters and make their bond stronger. However, this was the opposite of the case. Their stepmother pretended to be a good woman when seeking to marry their father, but once she was married, she revealed her true colors. Their stepmother was a woman of cold demeanor and sharp tongue, and what was worse was that she favored Ifeoma over Adesua, further fueling the flames of jealousy within her. She showered Ifeoma with praise and affection while Adesua was relegated to the sidelines, her presence barely acknowledged. When their father was around, the stepmother would pretend to treat them both equally, but when he is gone, she would treat Adesua badly. As the years passed, Adesua's burden grew heavier with each passing day. While Ifeoma blossomed in the adoration of their stepmother, Adesua was left to fend for herself, her spirit slowly withering under the weight of neglect and mistreatment. Despite the unfair treatment, Adesua remained kind and gentle, her heart untouched by the bitterness that consumed her sister. She would often spend her days helping others in the village, spreading joy wherever she went with her infectious laughter and warm smile. Meanwhile, Ifeoma's envy continued to fester like a wound that refused to heal. She would watch with simmering resentment as Adesua received praise and admiration from all who knew her, her beauty shining for all to see. One day, as fate would have it, their father overheard a conversation that would change the course of their lives forever. The king, ruler of the neighboring kingdom, was seeking a bride for his son, the elusive Prince Amadi. It was a custom in their land for royal children to remain unseen until they reached adulthood, and so Prince Amadi had remained a mystery to all but a select few. To their father's greatest honor, the king wanted to pick a bride from his family. Ifeoma heard her father having this conversation with the king's messenger, and her father suggested Adesua over Ifeoma. This enraged Ifeoma. Upon hearing this news, Ifeoma's envy reached a fever pitch. She saw an opportunity to secure her own future, to escape the shadows of her sister's beauty and claim a life of luxury and privilege as future queen. And so, with a heart consumed by greed and malice, Ifeoma hatched a wicked scheme to rid herself of her sister once and for all. With each passing day, Ifeoma began to think up ways to get rid of Adesua forever. She enlisted the help of her evil stepmother, who planned to poison Adesua's food. On a fateful day, they finally poisoned Adesua's food, and Adesua ate it and passed out. They found her lying on the floor, looking lifeless, so they began to rejoice. They were happy that she had finally died. They were happy that they got rid of her. They began to shed crocodile tears and mourn in falsity. Their father appeared unaware of the deception. He began to also mourn the loss of his beloved daughter, grieving over her lifeless body. To their stepmother, Adesua's death was an opportunity, a chance for Ifeoma to marry into royalty in place of her sister and elevate their family's status. With honeyed words, she convinced the father to hastily bury Adesua, urging him to not waste time in mourning when there was still a chance to suggest Ifeoma in place of Adesua and maintain their chances of being in-laws to the king. And so, Adesua was buried within 2 hours of her untimely demise. Her father, in a bid to honor her last memories, adorned her with the most exquisite jewelry as a tribute to her beauty.
Hello, if you have gotten to this point of the video, that means you love our story. Please kindly subscribe, share, like and comment as it helps us grow.
But even in death, Adesua's fate was not sealed. Ifeoma and her stepmother were not happy that she was getting all this expensive jewelry even in her death. Under the cover of darkness, that same night, Ifeoma and her stepmother crept to the gravesite, their hearts filled with bitter greed and malice. With greedy hands, they stripped Adesua of her jewels, leaving her cold and bare in the earth. In their haste to cover their tracks, they dug a shallow grave beside Adesua's final resting place, intending to bury her there and erase any evidence of their crime. And so, within a day of her burial, Adesua was once again laid to rest, or so they thought. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, as Ifeoma feigned grief and sorrow over her sister's supposed demise. The villagers mourned the loss of the beloved Adesua, unaware that within the forest, that night that Ifeoma and her stepmom buried her in a shallow grave, Adesua stirred from her slumber, her head throbbing with pain as she struggled to make sense of her surroundings. With a groan, she tried to push herself upright, only to cry out in agony as she felt a sharp pain shoot through her side. Clutching at her injured ribs, she realized with horror the truth of her situation. She was buried. Alone and afraid, Adesua knew she had to find help before it was too late. With great effort, she tried to pull herself out, but she was too weak. However, faith was on her side as a hunter was passing by her grave, and she began to plead for help. It was Prince Amadi himself, disguised as a humble hunter, in order to explore the world beyond the palace walls, who stumbled on Adesua's shallow grave. He took pity on her and dug her out to meet her in an injured form. Seeing her in distress, he took pity on her and carried her to safety, tending to her wounds with gentle care. He fed her and he gave her the best medicine for quick recovery. As Ifeoma was pretending to be mourning for weeks and months, the girl she thought she killed was regaining strength. For weeks, Adesua remained hidden within the prince's humble hut, her heart filled with gratitude for his kindness and generosity. She told him tales of her past and the treachery of her stepmother and sister, unaware of the true identity of her savior. She said she wanted to run away and never have to go back or see her family again. But the prince advised her to go back and confront her evil stepmother and sister. But she was adamant. Meanwhile, Ifeoma prepared to meet the prince and the king. Her heart was filled with anticipation at the thought of her future as a queen. Little did she know that her plans were about to unravel before her eyes. Back in the village, Ifeoma's deception began to unravel as rumors of Adesua's suspicious death began to spread like wildfire. Panic gripped Ifeoma's heart as she realized the enormity of her crimes, but she refused to be undone by fear. With cunningness, she spun a web of lies to conceal her guilt. But fate, it seemed, had other plans in store for Ifeoma. The day of her reckoning was close. Months went by, and with it, Adesua's strength returned with a newfound sense of purpose. She was determined to move past her horrific ordeals and start a new life elsewhere. On the day of the meeting with Ifeoma at the palace, Adesua was still unaware of the prince's true identity. The hunter tasked her with delivering gifts to the palace court. He begged her to carry out this task for him. At first, she refused to go because she didn't want to be seen publicly before she finally left the village to start a new life. However, the hunter begged her to do it as a favor and as payment for rescuing her life, because that day he was too busy to go himself. She set out to go deliver the gifts, while the hunter went to the palace as the prince. As she entered the palace, her heart pounded with excitement and grandeur of such beauty, unaware of the drama unfolding within the ground halls. At the same time, Ifeoma stood before the prince and the king, her heart filled with hope and ambition. However, the prince was uninterested in her, but she kept up hope. When he was finally asked if he wanted to marry Ifeoma, to everybody's greatest surprise, he said no. Ifeoma's dreams were shattered when the prince refused to marry her. The prince revealed that he had knowledge of some rumors of her sister's suspicious death. She was shocked and in disbelief. All these emotions washed over Ifeoma's face as the truth was about to come to light. Her hopes of royal ascension crumbled before her eyes. She defended herself, saying it was not true and that all the rumors were lies and she missed her sister badly. And then, to her greatest surprise, Adesua walked into the palace court, her eyes widening in astonishment as she saw the familiar faces of the people in the court. The hunter, who was the prince, that of her family members, and more shocking was that of her murderers, Ifeoma and her stepmother. Confusion clouded her mind as she struggled to make sense of the situation. Ifeoma was still unaware of the role that the prince had played in Adesua's rescue. Adesua's father, on the other hand, was in total disbelief that his lovely daughter was still alive. Wow, what a miracle! He burst into tears and went on to embrace his beautiful daughter. With a solemn voice, the prince recounted the tale of Adesuwa's rescue, exposing Ifeoma and their stepmother's crimes for all to see. The palace court erupted into chaos as the truth of their betrayal was laid bare, their family members recoiling in horror at the depth of their deception and their greed. And then, in a moment of clarity, the prince revealed his true identity to Adesuwa, his heart filled with admiration for her strength and resilience in the face of adversity. With tears of joy streaming down her face, Adesuwa embraced the prince, her heart overflowing with gratitude for his kindness and bravery. The prince, in the presence of all, asked her to marry him, which she agreed. With the truth finally laid bare for all to see, Ifeoma's facade crumbled like dust in the wind, leaving behind nothing but the hollow shell of a woman consumed by her own wickedness. She began to plead and beg, but the villagers were outraged by her betrayal. They cast her and her stepmother out from their midst. They banished them, making them outcasts. As if that was not enough, they also cast spells on them, condemning them to wander the earth as beasts alone for all eternity. And so, as night fell, Adesuwa stood tall and proud. She was happy that she made it till the end. Her spirit was unbroken by the trials she had endured. With the prince by her side, she embarked on a new chapter in her life, filled with hope and promise for the future. As the days went by, Adesuwa got married to the prince, and they lived happily ever after.